Two, one. We are live.
Hi.
Hi, hello everyone. I'm Neha. I'm the marketing director at Kocharya, and you've probably seen me a lot more recently than you have Magda. So here I am. And I'm really excited to be here with Tracy, our lovely coach trainer and also the standards director at Kocharya. Congratulations on your new position, by the way.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, how are you doing today, Tracy?
Good. Yes, it is a 7 a.m. for me. So I'm still in that waking state, but I've had some coffee and I've meditated. So hopefully I'll be coherent. I'm
Yeah,
excited to be here too.
awesome. Yeah, glad to have you here. Hello, everyone. Good evening, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you're joining from. Welcome. Today, we are going to talk about mindfulness and specifically about how mindfulness is overrated. We hear the term mindfulness all the time, everywhere now. It seems like it's just become such a buzzword. And Tracy, I'd love to get your initial thoughts on that.
Yeah, for sure. I think um it's become very diluted and it's become overused. Mindfulness is now used to mean so many different things that I wonder if anyone actually has a sense of what it applies to. And yeah, so maybe we can just start there.
Yeah, that sounds good. For me personally, sometimes the prospect of mindfulness feels really overwhelming,
Mhm.
and then of course the answer is like just be mindful of the fact that you're overwhelmed. No, I don't want to do that. I don't want to go deeper into the overwhelm, you know and mindfulness is also often like packaged as this thing that can help you cope with situations and with stress and with uh, difficult feelings that are coming up. So I guess there is just some confusion in my mind as to, no pun intended, but like there's some confusion in my mind as to what exactly mindfulness is. Would you just educate me about what exactly is mindfulness?
Yeah, so it's maybe more interest what comes up for me as you're saying that is there's a lot of things that mindfulness isn't. And it what it isn't and what it shouldn't be is like a coping mechanism or a cure-all. And I think that that's what's it's being marketed as now. Like there's mindfulness-based stress reduction, there's all sorts of mindful training techniques and mindful tools. And essentially, what mindfulness is awareness of specific things, right? So, if we're being mindful, then we're being aware of the words that we're saying, or we're being aware of the way that we're breathing, or we're being aware of what and how we're eating. So it's a very like almost focused type of attention. And there's a really important word that's within that title, and that's mind, right? So what we're doing is we're noticing with our minds where our attention is going or what we're doing, how we're moving. And that's important because there are many of us can attest to, I've been one. there's times where our mind isn't engaged, right? Like I for one have sat and watched a movie and finished like a thing of popcorn or a bag of chips and haven't even been aware of the fact that I've eaten through this massive amount of food because I'm not mindful of it, right? I'm just sitting there, I'm absorbed with something else, and the time goes by. Or think of the amount of times that we've lost our temper and the words just come and we say things that later we're like, oh my God, like how did that come out of my mouth, right? We weren't mindful of those words. So mindfulness does have a place and it does have an importance. But there's something to be said for not, we talk about aligning with our hearts. We talk about our intuition. We talk about this sense that we have even as coaches or just as, day-to-day humans of wanting to be embodied, of wanting to be able to relate outside of just using our heads. And that's where mindfulness isn't really applicable. Or it is, or I should actually maybe say it's limiting.
Yeah. Can you give me an example?
Yeah. So if, let's say, I'm having a conversation with you and what you're saying to me is perhaps something that comes into conflict with my beliefs or my conditioning, right?
Yeah.
If I'm mindful of that, then I'm going to be hearing the words that you're saying, and maybe I'll even be aware of my reaction to them. But I'm not able to disengage from the fact that it's my ego that's receiving all of this. Or maybe I'm not able to actually look at you from my heart space with some compassion and see what the meaning is for you, or get a sense of what your intentions are, or even get a sense of what my intentions are, because I'm so busy processing it through here, which is telling me what to believe, but is only looking at it through my own perspective, which is going to be different from yours.
Yeah. So in this example, are you saying that I'm just trying to get clarification for my own sake? Maybe I'm just very slow today, but I'm trying to understand. So mindfulness in this case could be detrimental because I'm mindful about the fact that this reaction is coming up for me, and then I'm just kind of mindful about that reaction. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, I don't want to say detrimental, but it can be limiting because
Right.
it's still more beneficial than just reacting, right? Like it's still more beneficial than just allowing the amygdala to hijack us, right? So
Absolutely.
it's a step. But then there's a level of, wait a minute, like I can tell, and this is where mindfulness is important as a first step. Like I can tell that I'm reacting right now. I can tell
Yeah.
that I'm fixed on this. And can I expand beyond it? Can I can I move beyond my physical and mental reactions to a more expansive space? And it sounds like it's hard to grasp, but that's because we're doing it with our minds.
Right. Right. Yeah, I love that. And I love that example. And it's so pertinent, right? Because it is, I just love that you changed it from like detrimental, which is the word I use, to like limiting, which is the reality of the situation. You're right. It is limiting. It's probably not detrimental. Detrimental would have been like if I did react and if I did say, how dare you say this to me, or something like that, and then like disrupt the conversation completely. So at least I'm not reacting externally, internally perhaps. So what's so say something happens in the conversation and I feel that reaction come up, and I think what you're saying is mindfulness is like a first step of like you notice that okay, it's coming up for me, but that there's something more beyond being mindful. Like what's the next step?
Yeah. So the next step is for me, and I want to acknowledge the fact that this isn't, I'm not preaching from someone that is always accessing this, but when it's, the next step is the awareness of the reaction happens, and then there's a level of expansion beyond that, right? Because the thing with the mindfulness is that it almost like implies a focused attention. So when we're just focusing on a reaction, then it's almost like we're staying in it, right?
Yeah.
So it's a level of expanding beyond it, of being able to almost come out of this sense of being caught up in our mental version or even our physical bodies, our physical space, and being able to like let go of that and expand the presence to not just me, but to us,
Right.
you
Right.
know? And so that I'm not seeing you as someone who is separate and different, but I'm seeing you, I'm seeing our common humanity.
That's beautiful. So I think the thing that came up for me as you were talking about that is, okay, so you become mindful of your reaction,
Mhm.
and then the idea is to expand my mind to encompass the other person or people around me. So in a sense, it's also like what you're talking about is also not like don't think of your reaction, right? So it's like saying don't think of a pink elephant type of situation then, right? So how do you shift your focus from your reaction and that mindfulness of that reaction to then expand?
Yeah. So it's almost coming out of the mind, right? Because our minds are still going to limit us in some ways. So it's for me personally, and people have different techniques, but when I get the sense that I'm honing in, right? Like I can tell because I'm moving forward. My eyes are fixed on you. There's something tensing in my body. There's like some sort of catching happening in my breath. So that I'm mindful of all of these things. And I kind of try to sit back from that and find a part of my body that doesn't feel that way. So maybe it's just that I really like realize the weight of my feet on the ground, or I press my palms into my legs and I become a little less in the head and a little more in my body. So that's the first step. And then I just actually really work on dropping into my heart space. And by doing that, I'm finding a sense of care or love or compassion or commonality, right? Like, even if it's so simple as, oh, she's angry. And, that feeling of anger it creates suffering. Like recognizing that what you're feeling isn't good for you any more than it's good for me, and so finding some level of connection there so that it's not about you against me, but it's just about us in this situation. And then the other thing that I try to do, and like I said, this is a work in practice, is access my intention. It's like, what do I want out of this situation? Do I want conflict? I don't think very many of us actually, when we think about it, we might actually want conflict, but when we think about it, we're like, no, this isn't what I want. We might be attached to conflict, but it's not our deep desire. We're not driven by this need for conflict, right? We're driven by a need to protect ourselves and to protect our identity. But we don't want to do that at any expense. And so that's the other part of it, is just like finding out what my intention is and then working towards that. Charlie agrees. Oh, that's a nice thing. That's a nice view.
She really agrees. Right? Oh, wow. Yeah. Yeah, because certainly I think in a lot of situations when, in when we react, or when we feel like we could have done better, in retrospect, we don't want to have had that conflict, even though it may be something that we're kind of conditioned to do, or it's just what we're used to doing. So I guess the first intervention of mindfulness helps, but I don't know if it's kind of like delaying the inevitable, because if I'm still like soaking in that reaction or response, then I'm just going to, like you said, I'm just going to be there still. If I'm focusing on it, I'm still going to be in it. And then I'll probably lose my cool 5 minutes later by focusing on it for the next 5 minutes. But yeah, and then I've lost what you're saying, for the last 5 minutes. I'm haven't been paying attention, and I've just been kind of marinating in that set of emotions or thoughts that are coming up for me, from whatever it is that triggered me. So, and I like what you said about moving into your heart space. I think intuitively I know what that means, like moving into your heart space. But if you had to maybe explain it to someone who doesn't understand what that means, or who feels a little, I can see how people can sometimes be a little averse to that kind of language of like move into your heart space. So would you maybe rephrase it, or maybe explain it in different terms, or just elaborate on it a little bit for me?
For sure. And I realize like all of this it's so hard to explain because again, we're explaining it from this cognitive place. But it's as simple as like, okay, think about if you watch a movie or you see a
Hmm.
kitten or you see like think of the things that you're drawn to that inspire this feeling of intense love, right? Like, and when I say love, again, that's a word that's overused or limited. Like, I'm not talking romantic because sometimes that
Mhm.
doesn't even always inspire the most clean feelings. And when I say clean, I mean like it comes along with a lot of other baggage.
Sure.
But yeah, when you think about when you watch a movie and you're moved by that, right?
Hmm.
Or you see someone and you feel moved, like that's what it is. It's so it's not like it I'm sure even now if you imagined something that's really moving to you, are you able to picture that and kind of drop into your heart space?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I'm in it anyway because I'm talking to you, but
Aw.
but I think you also mentioned kitten, and I was thinking about my cat, and I was like, yeah. So but then I wonder, like, I'm just trying to maybe understand it from like a sequential perspective. And I know that I understand that may not be the most helpful thing, but because again, we're getting very cognitive and cerebral about it, right?
Mhm.
Um, but okay, so I get triggered, I have a reaction, and then I'm become mindful of the fact that I am having a reaction. And then I drop into my heart space by thinking of my cat, for example, and that helps me navigate the situation in a better way. I feel like there's still something missing though. Like, am I missing some? Yeah.
No, it's not that you're missing something. It's that it's not necessarily that you're this is the thing. It's not that you're necessarily in that moment thinking of your cat. It's that the practice, and this is where practice comes in, right? Like
Hmm.
practice meditating, practice doing, for me, what's been really huge is doing loving kindness, like meta meditations,
Hmm.
because then you're getting used to that feeling of connecting from your heart space. So I can't really put it into like this order that's going to make sense because I don't know what order it is. It's not cognitive, but it's more that in that situation, I'm aware of my reactions. I think about what do I actually really want here? Do I want to be right? Or do I want to be in conflict? And then I'm able to drop into my heart space, connect with the other person, open myself up to more information than what my mind is telling me, which my mind is telling me very fixedly that I'm right. You know? And if you stay in the mind, then you can either be battling it, saying, okay, maybe you're not right. And then there's this conflict that's coming on in here, or you can move beyond the mind and take in other information.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
That makes sense. We have a comment from Sangeeta. Sangeeta says, being with nature helps you connect with your heart space. I think that's a good one.
Yes.
It does, right? I mean, again, I think or rather, I can speak for myself that, when I'm in nature, it's been a while, by the way, because, city life. But I think even then, just looking outside and actually like taking in the fact, okay, there's so many people, I see houses, I see buildings, there's so many people out there, and there's more to the world and to things than just what's going on for me. Like there's much more going on. I think even being with nature like just kind of puts things a little bit in perspective, that there's more and that there's connection. And yeah, again, like I think I'm also struggling for words because I don't know if it's something that can really be articulated so well. It's something that is to be felt, right?
Mm-hmm. And I could feel it as you were saying that, because that's so true. Like there's so many times that, like, if I've been stuck or struggling with something, even just so simple as trying to, my way is that, like, if let's say I have a deadline, right? And I need to, writing in particular, I need to write something. And I feel like, okay, I'm getting frustrated because it's not coming from here and coming out onto my, computer the way that I want it to. And what my mind wants to do is stay in it and continue struggling with it and to win, like to control the situation. I'm going to get this done. I'm going to spend all night if I need to. But what is the most effective way for me to actually be able to unstick is to get out and to go for a walk, to be in nature, to like kind of get into a flow. And like you said it so beautifully, to realize there's something outside of ourselves that's bigger, that's older, that's been around. Like the trees are amazing for me because I walk and I'm like, how many hundreds of years have they been here? What have they seen? Like, and my moment that I'm having right now is just so fleeting in comparison. It really is just a moment. And that's really, really powerful. And that's, again, going beyond mindfulness into some sort of connection, some sort of flow with something outside of ourselves that's bigger. Because our mind wants to control us and to hold on to us. And it's like, I heard this really wonderful analogy. It's like the Wizard of Oz. You ever watch that movie?
Yeah, yeah.
So there's this like massive light show and everyone's afraid of the wizard, right? But he ended up just being this little old man behind a curtain, right?
Yeah.
That's the mind. That's the mind.
Gosh. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so applicable. Like I feel I was having a conversation today with someone just about productivity, and they asked me like, what are some things that you do when you're feeling like I don't want to, what are some blocks for you? And I was like, I don't want to. Sometimes I don't want to start things. I don't want to do it because I think it's just the mind like telling me all the things that it tells me. It's like this cloud of like, you can't do this, you don't know what you're doing, let's go get some food, or all these different things, anything to avoid actually tackling the task. And I did say one of the things I would do is go out for a walk, call a friend, because again, that it's a connection, right? It's something outside of yourself, and you're connecting with someone else, and you're realizing that, okay, there's much more to things than just me and what I'm thinking and feeling right now. But I also love what you said about dropping into your body and like just becoming aware of your body and then dropping into your heart space and then working from that space, because everyone says, you know, like when you're confronted with a task like this, all you have to do is start. And you know, it's like all you have to do is start. Is That's like the hardest part, is to start. Once you start, it's all good. Then you're in your heart space, then you're creating, then you're in the zone, you're in the flow. But it's that initial sticking point, perhaps, where one could practice what you're saying of like accessing that heart space. So, Tracy, we're about 25 minutes in now, and I'm just like, I'm really curious to know, because I actually don't know how you do this. You have a course coming up called Beyond Mindfulness,
Mhm.
and what is this something that you can train people in, or is this something I can train myself to do, to go beyond just mindfulness?
Yeah, I think you put it so well when you said, can I train myself, or train is like, but yes, this is something that you can practice. This is something that we all, like coaching, will
Hmm.
be able to find our own ways of connecting to each other, connecting to the bigger picture, connecting to the whole, you know? And so what the program is about is not so much telling people how to do that, but it's kind of practicing together and having these conversations around um, how each of us does that. And then actually taking some reflection and actually bringing it into day-to-day life. um, yeah, and so we start off from the very beginning with just talking about what intentions are, and trying to come from this place of intentionality, because a lot of the times, um, when we're just staying mindful, we're just aware of what's happening within us, within our minds in that moment. But are we connecting to what our deeper intention is? Are we connecting to what we actually really want? That's part of that bigger picture. So that's where we actually start right from the beginning, is like thinking about intention and thinking about intentionality, which is even more important, which is like actually paying attention to that as we're going about our days and lives. And then all through, we just continue kind of holding this deeper connection as being something that we want with each other, with the people in our lives, with, you know, the world around us. And
Yeah,
that's the lens that we explore everything through.
I love that. And it sounds it sounds like a practice. You know, it sounds like something that needs to be continually practiced, and not something that, like you said, I understand now what you mean when you say it's not some, it's train is not the right word. That it's something that probably needs to happen on an ongoing basis, or is happening on an ongoing basis. So, just out of curiosity, like, can you give me an example of an intention or a lens through which you will go about your day? Or is it that you set specific intentions for specific interactions that you have? Like, say you have a session with a client. Are you going to set an intention before the session? Or is it something that you take with you throughout the day? Or can you have multiple intentions?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. For me personally, I try to have an overall intention, and that's usually based on what I'm noticing. So, what I'm noticing about what's come up for me, let's say over the last, like, because I do a lot of reflection. And so if I realize that, you know, over the last few days patience hasn't really been accessible to me, then maybe what I'll do is I'll set an intention to be patient, and that's patient with myself and patient with others. And so that might be like my baseline intention, right? But if I
Hmm.
know I'm going into a conversation with someone and that person maybe triggers me a certain way, or I'm going into a situation that I may react, then I might have a more specific intention for that, you know. um Maybe it's maybe it's being compassionate, or maybe it's just, you know, having the ability to ground myself in that moment, like,
Yeah.
you know, kind of knowing that I might react. So yeah, I think what intention isn't for me though is linked to a specific outcome. It's not like my intention is that by the end of the day I'm going to do 30 push-ups, you know, like
Yeah. Yeah.
because then it becomes a chore. It's more like, what do I want to be coming from within me? Like, what do I want to be manifesting? You know, it's um yeah. I don't know if I'm explaining it very well,
Totally.
but
Totally, you are. I understand. I think it's something, it's more like your, um, like we're talking about, like, say we're talking about an organization, it's more about the values than the goals or KPIs and outcomes, right? It's more about the values and where you're coming from, who you are, what you stand for, and perhaps, like, as you set an intention, it can be like, okay, this is what I'm going to be practicing today, is like being more patient. And whatever the outcome is, like, that's not, we're not necessarily looking to, curry favor with somebody, or something
yeah.
like that. It's That's the outcome that one might think about. That's something, that could be an outcome, but it just happens to be an outcome. That's not something we're looking to do. We're just looking to have an intention of being more patient. Is
Yeah,
that right?
thank you. Yeah, that's so, yeah, that's so wonderfully put. Because when we're focused on the outcome, then we just kind of fix on that one thing, and we sometimes lose track of where we're coming from in terms of our values. So I love the fact that you brought it down to values, because that's really where it's kind of like, what space are we coming from within us?
Yeah.
And knowing that if we access that space, everything that's going to come out of that, even though we don't know what the outcome is going to be, is going to be in line with what we wanted to be at that moment, or who we wanted to be, you know?
Hmm. That sounds like it's applicable in any situation, be it, if you're a coach, of course, if you're going into a session, or you know, you have different kinds of people you're interacting with, but also like with family, with friends, even within organizations, to be, maybe there's a certain type of leader that you want to be,
Mhm.
and then to kind of come from that intention into a conversation. Because if people get too outcome oriented, we know what happens, right? Like, you'll do whatever you need to do in order to achieve that outcome, and then like kind of maybe cause a lot of destruction in the process sometimes. Like, maybe like yell at people, or be passive aggressive towards people, or do these kinds of things, which I think a lot of people tend to do sometimes. But it sounds like it's applicable kind of across the board, just to all humans in general, no matter what the context.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Because the irony is, like you said, like, when we have an outcome in mind, we're going to do whatever we can to achieve that outcome. And oftentimes, all of the things that we do end up blocking the outcome that we want, anyways. That's the irony of it, right? I mean, we see that in
Mhm.
coaching all the time. So it's like, when we can let go of, we can access our deeper intention. And of course we want to have goals. I mean, we're driven by goals as humans, right? But we can let go of that specific outcome in that moment and come from the, the, like, who we want to be, the values that we want to manifest. Then we're going to be a lot more powerful in terms of being able to, just move towards that space.
Mhm.
Yeah, because we're
And
not
also,
blocked.
like, just go to sleep at night, uh,
Yeah.
with a clear heart, and with a warm heart, rather than thinking, oh my God, I could have done that better, I should have done this better. It would probably change a lot of things about the interactions you have with people throughout the day. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. It definitely helps us to limit the amount, because that's what regrets are, right? Like, we didn't want to end up where we were, and we did so because something else was driving us,
Hmm.
and we only recognize that after the fact.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a great place to wrap up, Tracy. I feel like I could talk to you forever, of course,
Me too.
but there's just so much more that we could unpack here just about this topic. But I would like everyone to know that Tracy is conducting a course on Beyond Mindfulness. It's a short course which is starting on the 13th of October. And if you want to learn more about it from Tracy, then you can find us at kochaya.com/events and take it from there. But I really appreciate you, Tracy. Thank you for this discussion. I think I'm going to, after this call, actually sit and set an intention for myself. Yeah,
Beautiful.
like an undercurrent, ongoing intention.
I love it. Yeah, thank you. This has been a wonderful way to start my day. So thanks for having me here and for the conversation.
Thank you for
Great.
being here. Really appreciate you. All right. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. And if you're watching this later, hope you're having a good time. And I hope you go and set an intention for yourself as well. All
All right.
right.
Thank you, everyone. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.